think we're going live now. I'm going with my intro scene first, though. Double check.
I can see your intro screen.
Yeah. Is it going? Okay, yeah,
I like
it's
the
going.
dots.
You like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloop, bloop.
Bloop,
Bloop, bloop.
bloop. Bloopity bloop,
Okay.
bloop.
It's kind of like Pac-Man.
Oh,
Someone's there.
someone's here. Who's that?
Oh my god, it's Charlie.
Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Charles. Hello.
He snuck in here.
Hold on. Which microphone is this using? 1 second.
That's so hilarious.
Are you special guest joining today? We're going to start the stream.
He wants the cred on YouTube.
Hello? There we go. Much better. Right? You hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you.
Okay, cool.
His audio is better than your audio, Satch. You need to sort that out.
Rich. I blame Rich now.
I blame myself too because I wanted it to be clean, and so I put everything away.
Yeah, we got this bookshelf.
Uh-huh.
So we put all of the books and all of the games and things on here. And we packed up everything. So the mic is all stashed away.
I see.
Yeah, Rich.
Okay, let's go live. Ready?
Let's do it. Ready.
Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, internets.
Hello. Rich, your turn.
Code reviewing?
Hello.
Oh, Charlie's special guest featuring Charlie.
Special guest featuring Charlie. Welcome, Charlie.
Hello.
Hello. I'm glad you're here. This is going to be an interesting stream.
It's true.
So the plan today is we just finished. So over the past, I guess, 5 or 6 streams, we've been basically doing a JavaScript crash course. And Satch and Rickles now have some JavaScript knowledge. And what we want to do now is take a look at some of the code that we've been writing in our apps. I've been, as we've been working together, to see how much of it we now understand and see how much of it we can identify. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Sounds good to you too, Charlie?
It sounds okay, but it's all right.
It's okay. We're enthusiastic.
Okay.
You
So,
are, and Charles didn't ground us.
Yeah, don't be too enthusiastic.
do we want to start? How do you? What do you guys want to do first? Do you want to take a look at? Should we look at some of? Did you write any code for homework, or did you do anything that you want to talk about before we start?
Well, I was taking a look at the homework, and I mean, still with regexes, I'm like every time I try something different, my expectation is just diminished because I try something out and I'm like, oh, that doesn't work. Okay, and then I do the next potential kind of combination of things.
Okay.
So like I guess one major question I have in regards to regexes is there like a I mean, besides picking the actual expression itself, is there like a priority list in terms of what, I mean, besides looking at the syntax of a code itself, like a priority of like which regexes take precedent over another one in the event where like you're typing it into a code? Does that make sense?
Well, one thing I can say is that regexes are not simple. They're not exactly easy to do, but they are very, very useful. So I don't know. I feel like whenever I'm doing regexes, what's really going to happen is we're going to write something, and maybe it'll work. And then we have to test it a bunch of times, test it in a bunch of different ways. And then if we're lucky, we'll get something that works. Did you want to add anything to that, Charlie?
I want to say that regex is a nightmare. And I could never remember it.
That's probably why there's a whole website.
I
dedicated
try
to it.
my best, if possible, to not use regex as a way of validation as much as I can.
That's fair. It's reasonable to be scared of them. That's a reasonable reaction. Okay. Let's... Oh, I lost you. Where did my Discord go? Okay. All right. So we were playing a game last time. We were trying to use regexes to play a game. We could do that again.
Solve a crossword.
Yeah, solve a
Yeah,
crossword.
I love solving crosswords.
Yeah. It's okay.
What happened to the book report?
Yeah. So since the last time we chatted, we did a JavaScript tutorial, and we haven't touched the book report since then. But now
Poker
I think,
game?
or the poker game.
Oh, okay.
But now I think we can head back. We're gonna head back to LiveJournal and take a look at it. So I'm gonna make the window a little bigger and still fit you folks on the screen. There we go. I think this is a good size here. And let me share. Start collaboration. And I'll drop a link in Coding with Shad. Okay.
That's so funny. Last time Kent joined our live share.
Kent?
But I didn't know he did any coding before.
He didn't.
But he was in our live share.
Was he in the live? I
Or
don't
was
think he
that
in live.
Charlie? Wasn't that someone?
No, I haven't written
No,
any
he just
code
joined the
before.
Discord.
Yeah.
No, he joined the live share, remember? And he...
Yeah,
Didn't
he did. I think you're right, he did. Just for a little bit. I mean, it's a link. Anyone can click it and then end up editing files on my computer. I'm sure
Oh, God.
we're I'm only a software engineer, security engineer for Google. I don't
Only.
It's okay.
Dad, when do you have office hours for like a podcast type of interview series? Because I'd like to pick your brains and stuff.
Oh, would you?
Ooh.
Anytime, man. We can have some fun. I've mostly been wanting to do like beginner level stuff, but if you wanted to do something different, I'm sort of like trying out this whole YouTube thing, like throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. So anytime, willing to try stuff.
Cool. It would be interesting to hear some insights of a Google engineer from a non-Google engineer.
I'm more than happy to. I don't know that I have any insights that non-Google engineers don't have, but I'm more than happy to talk about what it's like to work there.
Cool.
Oh, I bet you get a lot of intrigue from fellow coders.
For sure, there's lots of YouTube channels that do that.
Okay.
They talk about their experience with like working in FANG company.
Okay, let's plan one. I also worked at Amazon, so I have some. I can also say something about that.
2 out of 5.
Yeah, 2 out of 5 is not bad. But I think that I'm done hopping companies at this point. Should we start at the top?
Also, Yahoo.
There, Fang doesn't have
Are they?
Y in it.
Oh,
Fangy?
We can make it fangy. Nobody
No,
considers
they managed to.
I think
Yahoo managed to avoid to be one of those the Fang.
fangy. it makes Fang a lot more cute. It used to sound all like aggressive, and now it's not aggressive at all. All right, so let's take a look at at our LiveJournal. And so this is where we started. This is where we were last time. And there's a bunch of different files here. And I think that maybe the best one to start with is probably, which one was the top one? I forget. I think app was the top one.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Let's start with app then. So app is where we start the app. And we have a bunch of import statements. And we didn't exactly see too much. Hold on, I need a new window. And in this window, I want to open up our tutorial that we were doing together. JS tutorial. So if you recall, we sort of did this thing. If you're looking at the live stream, on line 3 here, I said const fs equals require fs, and then I read a file, and then here we are printing out words that match this regex. So if you recall, that was when we were trying to solve a crossword, right? So the line I want to draw your attention to is line 3, require fs. So require is the line I want to draw. So
It's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. So require is one way of sort of importing a library, and then there's another way using the import statement. And I'm not exactly sure which one you're supposed to like. I think that depending on your environment, you can use require, and in other environments, you need to use import. For our LiveJournal, import's the way to go. In this case here, we were not running in a browser. Our crossword stuff and our JavaScript tutorial, it's not running in a browser. We ran those things in Node.js, and so it needed a different one. But these are basically the same thing. Do you want to take a guess at what this require and these imports do?
They allow you to access a file on your computer?
Okay.
Or are you talking about something more specific?
No, that's a good guess. What do you think, Rickles?
Oh, wait, hold on. Are you talking about the import statement as well?
Yeah, they kind of do the same. They kind of do something very similar. And I just whatever you think. What do you think its purpose is?
And so the import statements import from websites as well, like a catalog of different things that you can use or something.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, that's pretty close. That's actually, I think that's really close. That's a good way of thinking about it. Charlie, do you want to try and educate him?
Educate us.
Tell us, man.
Keep me as a silent bystander. But where's Mom? I didn't see Mom.
Oh, she's in the YouTube chat.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to be a silent bystander.
Okay. All right.
Starting now.
Okay. Sounds good. I won't.
You gotta drop some knowledge on us, Charlie. Come on.
I just want to enable as much participation. So, but yeah, totally respect whatever you like, Charlie. Okay, so Rickles, you want to take a stab at what this require and import is?
Okay. From hovering over one of these imports,
Yes.
I have determined
that it's drawing from the React.js. Is that an API or some sort of API that holds the data required for us to use these constants here
Okay.
in our code?
Okay.
Or does it give you access to a database?
You guys are using a lot of interesting words. Let's start with one word you used there, Rickles. What's an API?
API is a thing that has a bunch of letters in it.
Okay. I was just digging a little deeper to see how far we could go,
Yeah.
Richard, you sound like people that I interview sometimes that just come in and just throw a bunch of buzzwords and hope that I don't follow up with further questions.
Yeah, man, that's how I got into now Yahoo.
This is
Just kidding. I'm not a Yahoo, everybody.
I think this stream is turning out to be one of the most entertaining streams we've ever done, huh? This is good. I'm on board. Okay. All right. So let's talk. So API, you're sort of right. API. I keep getting asked actually that question by beginners. What's an API? I'm not going to answer the question yet, but I just want to tell you what these import statements are first. So require basically accesses a library that has been provided so that you don't have to do it yourself. Okay? That's what libraries are. Libraries are things that other people have written, code that other people have written, that allow you to do things with the computer and you don't have to figure out how to do it yourself, right? A good example of that would be this FS library that we imported here. Yeah, when we required it. What FS allows us to do, it provides us with tools for reading files off of your computer, right? And we used it to read this dictionary. Does that make sense?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And imports are the same deal, right? So if imports are the same deal, then that means they're also pulling things from a library. And that library is something that somebody else wrote that we get to use, and so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Forget about you wouldn't, let's say you're building a bike, right? You wouldn't go and forge the metal yourself and then shape it into a circle and then go and pick rubber off a tree and then, no, you would go and buy a wheel, you'd go and buy a tire, put it on, you buy a frame, someone else will do it, right? And in programming, you want to do that as much as possible. You want to let someone else do the work because we're a bunch of lazy bums, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the word API that you used, the way that you would use it in this context, or the way it applies in this context, is API is basically what describes. It's think of it as the contract that the person who has made you something wants you to interact with their thing. Right? So if they give you a thing, they give you a wheel, the API would be how to install that onto a frame. Where is the hub located? What is the shape of the thing that goes through the wheel, the shaft, right? The API is the specification of how to use that thing. In this case here, the API is, yes, Satch, you look like you have a thought. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's like a manual or like a protocol type of thing.
Oh, there's another word. Protocol. What is that?
Impressive.
Oh man. What is a protocol? Something that you refer to for information in various situations.
What did you find impressive, Charlie?
The fact that Sachi was able to kind of deduce, get to the actual definition of an API. I didn't think she would have understood, to be honest.
No, I've actually
Charlie?
I've observed this a few times with Satch. She doesn't. I don't know where she has this knowledge stored. It's in there somehow. That's good.
It took me a while
Oh,
to
yeah.
understand what an API was, Sachi, when I started being a dev. So for you to
Oh,
just pick
wow.
up kind of like that, it's pretty impressive.
Thanks, guys. That makes
Thank-
me feel nice.
Thanks, Satch.
It was also the description of the wheel and the manual process too. Good description, Don.
Okay, thanks.
You're doing good too, Richard. You got this.
That's Kent on the stream. Hi, Kent.
Yeah.
I can't.
Thanks. What I did is I alley-ooped from the start.
Yeah, Rich was the alley-oop for me.
I alley-ooped it, but what I did is I hucked it from the halfway point, half court line, and then, done alley-ooped it for
Yeah.
That
dunked it
metaphor's
right.
dead. Stop.
We're the best duo.
I wish Satya could expand on the whole protocol idea, though. What did you mean by that?
Man, well, in research we
Why
have
did you use
protocols.
that word then?
Oh, I'm telling you why. So, in research, we have protocols for all our different research studies, and they're things that you can refer to for any situation that you'll run into or how to operate, basically, standard operations.
Mhm.
So when Dunn was describing the tire and the manual and stuff, it just made me think of that.
That's very interesting. Okay, I see why you decided to use the word protocol. So I think it's useful for us to talk. We actually have already developed a protocol for the poker app, and I'd like to talk about, since we're on the topic, I think it might be useful for us to quickly look at that. Do you wanna?
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Am I allowed to, if I open another file here, will it kick you off? I really hope not. Hold on. I will just open it on the stream. Poker.
Yeah, I bet if you open another tab, it should.
Okay. Well, since we're doing JavaScript, I'm going to open our protocol in the front end version of that stuff. Okay, so just follow on Discord for now. So, when programmers use the word protocol, they typically refer to when they're using that word, they're referring to communication over a network and what the format of the messages are. So, a good way of thinking about it is what is the structure of, like, what is the language that we're going to use to talk to one another? That is probably the best way to talk about it. So, do you remember we made some URLs, like WS Games, and you pass the token ID, and then you retrieve back a dictionary that contains information about the poker game.
Yeah, that's right. And it's supposed to state the part in the game that we're in, whose turn it is, what options they have, what cards they hold.
Yes. So the sequencing of messages, like what request you send and what response you get, right? That full definition there, that defines the protocol that we're typically going to be using. It also happens to be called an API as well. API is used by that as well. So like if I have this poker API backend and I want to enable Charlie to build a front end, I could publish the API to him, and then he could write a front end for it. And then we could have independent front ends that both play the same game. The protocol allows us to use multiple different kinds of clients. And then the documentation of that protocol is the API. And then you can use that API to talk to things. Now, I think that that API is the more common word. Like, we use that for libraries. We use that for web URLs. We use it for many, many different things. And protocol tends to be reserved for network things for whatever reason. So, like, you might have heard of HTTPS. That's a protocol. Like, there's a specific way to use that protocol to download a web page. There is like other protocols like FTP for sending files. There's the SSH protocol for logging into other computers. Anyway, that's the words protocol and API. Okay, so where were we? We were at the import statements. So we can use them to import things. And in this case here, one of the libraries that we're using is React. And we talked a little bit about React. It's basically a front-end library that allows us to, that basically enables us to make apps that are very dynamic and reactive. They like web apps that sort of behave more like native apps than they do like web pages, if that makes sense. So like if you go to a web page and then it behaves like an app, it's usually going to be using some library that is sort of like React, or there's a few other frameworks, a few other libraries that behave this way. And React provides us with a bunch of tools that enable us to make our apps. And in particular, we used an additional library called React UI. Material UI, do you remember? And a lot of these are components from the Material UI framework that allows us to build an app without having to do all of that from scratch. Like if we otherwise had to draw every button, that would have taken us a lot more time.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Okay, moving on to the next thing. Well, we can try and move a little bit faster if you like. So, what does this look like to you?
Oh, a bunch of identifications. Signatures?
Do you remember
So,
our...
I mean, I know we
Security! Sorry. Rich, you were going to say something.
I think it is has to do with security, and it's in some ways. It looks like it's linking to Firebase, which is what we use to host the API, and also a database as well.
But
that's what I remember.
yeah, but more fundamentally, what is this thing that we're looking at here? This syntax here, what is it? By the way, Satch, both you and Rickles were right what you said. This has to do with how, like, the security for it's sort of the specification necessary so that when we talk to Firebase knows who we are. So I guess it would be like authentication and authorization of our app to the database. That part is all correct. But I'm specifically talking about these curly braces because we studied that.
Oh. Well, it's what allows us to identify the beginning and end of a specific, well, in this case, a constant set of code.
So do you remember what this is, though? What this is called? When you have these keys and these values?
A list.
Nope.
Right?
No.
No?
Satch? If you recall,
I don't know.
you guys don't remember. If we look back at our when we were
Our
practicing.
review page.
Yeah, where did I put that? Hold on, I think I have that on my desktop. Let me grab it real fast.
Yeah, we know it, but we just can't put our finger on it.
Yeah, if so, like I frequently use the word phone book when we were talking about objects like this. Do you remember?
It's an object.
Yeah.
Bloody.
There you go. It's an object. You just need so what I'm hoping to do when we go through this, there is what the code does, but I think for this stream it's useful to focus on the things that we're looking at, not what they do, because to a large extent you do know what they do. We did them together already and you understand what everything is doing. But I want you to realize that what we learned in the class, in the crash course, is all 100% applicable here. And I want you to be able to identify the pieces that you learned. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is an object with a bunch of keys and values. And this is useful, if you recall, when we were doing objects. It's useful for, where's my objects? Here it is. It was useful for holding things like a phone book, but it's also, as you can see here, useful for holding configuration, settings, right? Like Firebase is going to need to know what is my API key. It's going to need to know what is my auth domain and all this other stuff. And I don't need to know what it is, just Firebase does, you know? So I can put this into this object and send it off to Firebase, and Firebase knows what to find, where to find the API key. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Next. What is this? This looks very complicated, and it is. Do your best. What is it?
Theme.
Oh, let me give you a hint. While it is complex, you can break it down. Like start from the inside, work your way out.
Right. So it has the different themes and colors.
Mm-hmm.
But you want us to identify what this thing is.
Yeah. This is just so you know, this is a compound. This is like a compound thing. There's many things going on here. So let's identify the pieces first.
So we can start off with that it's an object again. These are objects.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes,
Hey,
yes.
I was thinking it.
Yeah, just say it. You can't. It's not. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. Just say things, and we'll learn.
Do objects always start with constants are a bunch of different things all the time.
Objects always start with either, well, with some exceptions. Usually, an object starts with these little curly braces, unless you're defining a function, which they're there too. But if you see this all by itself, it's probably an object. So let's go.
Oh.
So let me start us off, yeah? So here is an object. This small little thing here. This is one object, yeah? And this object,
So there's a bunch of
exactly. What are the other objects?
So even this add global thing is an object? This part?
Yeah, it is. Mm-hmm.
Any type of thing like the body, is that an object too?
Yeah.
So many.
It is. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The background color.
Now there's some complexity here. Let me try and unravel the complexity for you. So you have this object, which happens to have, think of it again, phone book, where this is the name, the min height, and the value is 100 VH. And you have background color, and it is whatever the theme's default color is. That's what this is saying, yeah? But this object is a value as well, right? This is the key, this is the value, this is a key as well, and this is the value. This is a key, and this is a value, and this key and value are part of this object, the bigger one on the outside. And if you... So this is basically an object containing objects, containing... so let's look at it, right? We have this one big object, and the keys of this top level object are global, grow, and container. The global object its value is another object that has only one key in it. The key is body. And body has one object as a value that has how many keys?
1. The background color.
Yes, and it's set to the theme's paper color. So does this all make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's this.
It's a meta object.
Yes, let's call it that. It's a meta object, or it's a book of books, a phone book of books, right? Where you can sort of recursively is not the best word, where you can dig deeper into the object. And you'll see this a lot. This is a very common pattern where you have objects inside of objects. And we did it too, just so you know. Do you remember when we were solving the most number of anagrams?
Mm-hmm.
We created a dictionary whose keys, we created an object whose keys are the anagram fingerprint and whose values are a list, right? And
Right.
the cool thing about this format of objects and lists, objects and arrays, is that you can essentially have objects inside of arrays. You can have arrays as the values of things in objects, and you can do that. You could nest that as much as you want. You can make whatever structure suits your purpose. And we've done that before too. When we were coming up with the structure of our game, we encode the structure of the poker game in a certain way. And we can go back and look at it, but that's fine for now. Next, what's this?
Oh, it's got the arrow thing again. Oh, stupid arrow. I forget what the arrow is about.
You forget. Okay. We didn't use it much, so
Maybe
that's
if
fair.
I hover it, it'll tell me the answer. It's a function. Is it?
It is. Yes, it is.
I cheated.
There's nothing wrong with cheating. You should always cheat to learn the answer to things.
Yes. Nice.
Okay, so it's a function. And if you recall, we learned two kinds of functions. We learned named functions, and we learned arrow functions. This is an arrow function. And the reason why it's not a named function is because it doesn't have... What doesn't it have?
Arithmetic? Just kidding. Just kidding.
So let me try again. It's not a named function because it doesn't have a
Return.
name, because it doesn't
No?
have a name. It's not a name.
Man, that was way too...
It's too on the nose.
No, but it's
Maybe.
important. It's important to recognize, right? Because that's the key here. We have this definition of a function, and there's no name for it. We don't name this function ever. We just take this as a function, and we just use it. That's what's interesting about this function. We're going to see this a lot too. This is a common pattern. So this unnamed function, you could have named it if you wanted, but it was shorter to not do that. So this function, can you guess what the argument is?
The argument.
Remember, functions take arguments and then return a value. So what is the argument that this function takes?
Is it the theme?
Yes, it is the theme. The theme is the argument, and that argument that then gets used in the body of the function. It gets used here and here, right? This is how this settings can know about a theme, because theme will get passed in to this function that has no name, this nameless anonymous function, if you want.
Oh, I was just about to ask that, Professor. Is an arrow function the same thing as an anonymous function or a lambda?
It is.
Okay. I'm not sure. I'm not used to the JavaScript like buzzwords, I guess. I haven't written anything in JavaScript.
Oh, lucky you.
I've tried my best to prevent it as much as I can.
Then you have been very successful. Yes. There's many different names for this. JavaScript calls it arrow functions. Other languages call them lambdas. And they're also called anonymous functions. You'll come across all these words someday, but the important thing is to just notice that it doesn't have a name. And that's...
If you were to name it,
Yes.
how would that work?
Like this.
Would it just be...
Yeah, that's an excellent
title?
question. You would do it like this. You would say function, a themer. I don't know what to call it. It's, but here it is.
Is themer the name?
And themer will take a
Oh.
theme, and then it needs to return this stuff. And now you can use themer here.
Oh.
Wasn't the
Whoa.
layers.
Now Now you're a named function.
Now you're a named function. But as you can see, like by using an anonymous function, by using an arrow function, we can avoid having to give this thing a name, which only ever gets used once.
So then things that you don't feel you'll come back to, you wouldn't give a name to.
You might still. Naming things makes things more readable in the long run, but in this case it doesn't, because there's no good name for what this thing is. Like, what is it? It's a thing that applies theme to a dictionary and then returns it. Like, it's a themer. Like, what? You see what I'm saying? There's no good. I don't know. I could be easily proved wrong on this. I'm sure there's excellent variable namers among us. But in this particular case, yeah. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
All right, let's put our code back to what it was.
Anonymous.
We're making good progress on this. I'm very happy. Okay, now we're on to something interesting. What is this? Line 46.
A function.
Yes.
Is it not a function?
I tend to I never try to ask trick questions, just so you know, Satch. I'm always going to be asking obvious things.
Okay.
I don't like trick questions, but that's not my goal. My goal is for you to learn and for me to make sure, like, a lot of times the purpose of the question is to understand where you are. Like, if you are, if you are with me, then you'll be able to answer my question, basically. So I will sometimes ask just obvious things. Don't worry. So yes, this is a function. But notice something kind of interesting about it. It has a capital M. So that's kind of unusual. Almost all the things we've been looking at has not capital M's. They would have a small m. And you wouldn't know why that is. I never told you. So I'll tell you now. This capital M is because in React, this is a React specific thing, we define our components as functions, right? All these components that we're going to reuse up here, container, app bar, toolbar, icon bar, button, whatever, all these things, they are components. They also happen to just be functions, but you're gonna see very, very shortly why it's a component and not just a regular function. And a hint, it starts at 49. Why this is different from regular JavaScript. What's 47?
Const.
Yes.
And yeah, but is that so different? Because the const is there in between the return.
Oh no, this is fine. And yes, this is a constant. What is this?
I don't know.
You don't? Where else do you see use styles?
Up here? Oh. In the function up here.
Yep. So, and what do you remember what these parentheses do?
It allows you to put things in the parentheses as definitions or as I don't know how to describe it. I feel like I don't know what it means when it's empty.
I think that's a common trouble. So just so you know, this is this is how you call a function in JavaScript, and this is how you call a function with no arguments that you pass. Right? So if you remember from our JavaScript tutorial, we had things like console.log fruits. Here's a good example. So console.log is a function that we're calling.
Oh, great.
But we're not passing anything here. That's because this thing that we're calling doesn't need an argument. And there's special reasons why that is, but we don't need to go into that now. Long story short, we're calling a function. And the function we're calling is this one. And this is weird because this does not look like a function, does it?
No, it doesn't.
That's because it's kind of hidden. This makeStyles thing, which takes a function as an argument. So makeStyles is a function, weirdly enough, and it takes this function as an argument. This is complexity, and it's too bad that it's not as accessible to beginners as it could be. But just understand, this function takes a function as an argument and then returns a function. And that function then becomes called useStyles, and we then call that function.
Oh god.
Right? So let's write this out as a comment. So makeStyles is a function that takes a function as an argument and returns a function. Is a function, comma, that takes a function as an argument, comma, and returns a function. And then we call it here. We invoke the function here. This is way too complex for anyone to. The thankful thing about all this is that you don't need to know all this. You can literally copy paste this in every file, and then make your themes work, and always just follow the same pattern. And you'd never need to know that this is what's happening. But the truth is, you've learned enough at this point that if you completely internalize everything I taught you, you would be able to decipher this. That's the key, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It returns a function. And usually the return is not a function. A return is just a return.
That's a good question. I don't know. I've seen a lot of JavaScript where a lot of functions get passed around, a lot of functions get returned. There is an advantage in a lot of instances to do this, which is that when you pass a function around, you don't actually execute the function. Like, you only execute the function when you invoke it. So it allows you to like sort of pass references to code around that you want to eventually run, but maybe don't want to run now. Does that make sense? Like, let's say that I want, like, let's say I want, this is the biggest use case for this type of pattern. Let's say that I want my code to do a thing when, let's say it's the poker game, I want my code to do a thing when I get an event from the server. So I write this code to do this thing, and then I say, hey server, please call this function when an event occurs. That's an example, right? I don't invoke the function myself because it's not the right time for that function to run. The function should run when the server sends me some information, and then I want the function to run. So I will take my function, pass it to some other function that will invoke the function for me at the right time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's more situation based, or like something that is going to happen later on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
Is useStyles used anywhere else?
So this class is here, the output of this. Okay, so there's some depth to that I was hoping to not have to go into, but because you're asking that question. So in React, there are when you use components, these components are usually, like, functions are usually stateless. But in recent versions of React, they've made it so that you can have some state inside of a function, which is a little weird, but it does make your code quite clean. And this useStyles is what they call a hook. It allows you to essentially have some state in the function. And it's kind of strange, but you have to invoke these states like when you use hooks, you have to invoke them at the top of the function, and you have to invoke them always in the exact same order. So they cannot be inside of an if statement. There's a bunch of conditions and rules around it. But long story short, because there is this word use on it, this is a hook. And hooks have to be used in a particular way.
So this is like a React convention.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
It's actually more than just a convention. The React transpiler will shout at you if you use it incorrectly. If you do it, like if I were to say use styles, like normal code would allow me to do this. I'd be allowed to take this guy here and just put it here.
Coming from the land of like Java and Elixir, having a stateful function is pretty tough to wrap my head around.
I know. It's almost an oxymoron, actually.
Yeah, because the whole thing about like functional programming is that you don't hold state.
Mm-hmm. You're not wrong.
But okay, let's move on.
You're not wrong. But that being said, this code is actually way cleaner than if we had to do it with classes, and I'm specifically trying to stay away from classes because there's enough beginner material not having to talk about them. But we did, just so you know, Satch and Rickles, we did talk briefly about classes, remember? We did fractions.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We're on to the very last bit. We've made it to the end of one file. Oh, we have not. We made it to the middle of one file. Okay.
It seems like the end.
So, do you know what this is? I don't expect you to, but do you want to guess?
Oh, I thought it was part of the function.
It is. It is part of the function, yes.
Container, Firebase app provider. Oh gosh.
Okay. Let me just jump in real fast. So this is not strictly JavaScript anymore. React is written in a slightly more a superset of JavaScript called JSX. So this code here is non-JavaScript code. It is an extension to JavaScript. But it still actually eventually becomes JavaScript. But basically, this allows us to write code that kind of looks like HTML, which is useful when we're building UIs. The idea is we have a container, and inside the container we have this Firebase app provider, and then inside that we have an app bar, and inside that we have a toolbar.
Oh man, it's like a sandwich.
It is like a sandwich, yes, and it would not compile properly if it wasn't a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
But long story short, all of these things, even though they look like HTML, they are not. They are not HTML. They are. It's better to think of them as a kind of JavaScript, a JavaScript where, and we've done it before, where you basically say something along the lines of const. I'll write you some example code of what this looks like in non-JavaScript. We've talked about it just briefly before when we were doing poker, when we were trying to do the 3D modeling stuff. So imagine if you did this. You did const container equals a container object, right? And then you said container, and you say container dot disable gutters, and then you say container dot class name equals this, and then you said so on and so forth, right? So these 4 lines that I'm about to write would be this one line here. And then you would do the same thing for the Firebase, and then you would add the Firebase to the container. So I'll just keep going just a little bit longer so that you can get an idea. Firebase app provider equals
So it's a little more tedious to do it this way.
Yes, that's exactly why we don't do it this way. This is why we prefer this JSX syntax. It lets us represent a bunch of structural code, things that have to do with the visual view of the app, in a way that does not require us to write a bunch of like JavaScript stuff, right? So yeah, so imagine, and then after this, we would then say Firebase app provider dot add. No, sorry, other way around. We would say container dot add Firebase app provider, right? So lots of this. You would have lots of this code where we basically build up the structure. This is more readable, and so we prefer this. And just so you know, this code cannot run in a browser. It needs to be converted into browser compatible JavaScript. And when it does, it generates code like this. Okay.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
Oh my god, I just realized. So is HTML what websites? You know when you inspect on Chrome,
Yes.
is that all HTML?
Yes. Usually. Mostly, yes.
And HTML is like the web browser thing. Like,
Yes.
that's adding up for me.
We're witnessing the connecting the dots moment right now.
Yeah.
This is what I
It's
live
happening
for.
me.
I'm happy to say that I've observed so much of it since I started teaching on stream. Like I've seen Rickles and Satch like light up a lot. I'm very happy to see it as a teacher. It's wonderful.
Yay.
Okay. So we're almost at the end of the first file. Okay.
You were thinking of getting to the entire file thing, right?
Pardon
All
me?
these files here. You weren't thinking of going through all of these today, were you?
I was thinking I don't know. I always think we would get through more than we end up doing, but we always achieve a lot. So positives and negatives.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, one thing I forgot to mention. This container is something we imported from up here. That's this container we imported, yeah? This Firebase app provider, also something we imported from up here. This app bar, also something we imported from up here. Right? Now, a question you might have is, like, it can't be turtles all the way down. At some point, you need to, like, actually write something, right? So how do you do that? So typically, you'll see things like divs. Divs are at the bottom. You'll never, you won't import a div, because div is a proper basic HTML. So when the letter is no longer capital, usually, not always, but when it's not capital anymore, it's usually referring directly to the plain old HTML at that point. So it's no longer the turtles. Yeah.
What do you mean by the turtles?
So container, it's a good question. So this container, right, is something we imported, which means somebody else implemented this. It is something that React people or Material UI people, I don't know which library this comes from, one of those libraries has implemented container. I think it's Material UI. And if you go to it, you can actually see the implementation. You can command click it, and then now you're seeing parts of the, well, this is not the implementation, this is the declaration, but you get the idea, right? This is implemented by someone else, and we're just using it. And so when I say turtles all the way down, it can't be the case that everything is just implemented by everyone else, right? You have to at some point implement something, right? So things that you implement, the primitives, if you want to call it that, are these divs and certain other HTML tags that we'll see a few of. And you can usually tell the primitive types from the compound types by the first letter. And that's why, by the way, our M is capital, because we've made a compound component that is wrapping all of these components into one bigger component called main that we can then use later down here. This one is not imported because we implemented this one. What? We implemented it. Make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Also, did the turtle come into the explanation yet? Did we talk about the turtle thing already?
Okay. Turtles all the way down is a reference to a myth. Yeah. Charlie, you want to explain what turtles all the way down means?
I would like to plead the fifth.
I don't even know where it's from, but like, let's look it up on your own time. I can't even explain it. I don't know. I was hoping Charlie would just be able to do it for me, but it sounds like none of us have the knowledge. Hold on, we have the internet.
Oh my god, it's fine. It's a novel by John Green.
No.
Yeah, I know, but the expression was before the book.
Yeah. Turtles all the way down.
Oh right, this book is pretty recent.
Is an expression of the problem of infinite regress. The saying alludes to the mythological idea of a world of turtles that supports a flat earth on its back. It suggests that this turtle rests on the back of an even larger turtle, which itself is part of a column of increasingly large turtles that continues indefinitely.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so when I say it's not turtles all the way down, I mean it doesn't just continue forever, these compound things. They eventually have to stop at the primitives.
Right. Plus, you're not like, you have to do your own thing eventually. You can't keep hopping on a turtle's back type of thing, too?
Well, I mean, you can actually get by without ever using a primitive. You can use libraries, like you can always use a library to do something for you. What I mean is, though, that like those libraries have to be implemented in terms of primitives eventually. Because the browser only knows divs and standard HTML things. It has to be implemented in terms of primitive things. All of these other things that we have, these compound things, are just conveniences that allow us to wrap complex structures into easier to manage things, like this main, for example, right? This main that we created here is our complex thing that is a whole bunch, is the container and the Firebase configuration and our app bar and our toolbar and all these other things, all wrapped up into a nice little main, right? But at the end of the day, like if you go into container needs to be a div at some point or some kind of HTML, probably a div. Does it make sense? So it's not turtles all the way down.
That's pretty fun.
I think so.
Okay.
It's not turtles all the way down. Okay.
I also like the visual of the turtle on top of the turtle. It's from Wikipedia. Anyway.
All right.
As we were.
We're having some fun. Okay. Let's quickly go through this. This is, what do you think this is?
Function. Oh, you're exporting something.
Yeah. Forget about these words for the time being. What's this?
Oh, a function.
Yeah.
Oh, it's one of those functions that will come later.
You're right. It's a component. So we have a main component and we have an app component. These are both essentially similar things. And this export default, it just allows us to talk about app outside of this file, which I'll show you in just, that's the last thing we'll do before we end the stream. I will show you how app gets used.
So does that mean it's only exporting like this part of it into other files? Like we can access this part of the code in a different file?
Correct. That the better way to say it is you can access the app function in another file, but that's the only function you can access. Here we have a thing. It's what is it?
Use media query. Oh, right. Damn it. Another function.
Yes, correct. And it's passing this as the argument. I will. Let's go through this real fast then. What's this?
Oh, an object.
Correct. Whose key is type and whose value is the result of evaluating this interesting expression. We don't need to talk.
Is it the theme?
It is.
Dark theme mode.
Correct. So if prefers dark mode, which is the system, which is defined by your system, is dark, is true, then we will set the palette to dark. the palette type to dark. Otherwise, we will set it to light. So this is how we can have a dark and a light theme in our app. What's this?
That is an object.
Correct.
2 objects.
Yes.
Meta object.
Yes. All those things are correct. What's this?
That thing.
What is this create theme?
That is something. It's, I don't know, a function?
Yes. You're calling, well, you're calling a function. Create theme is a function that you're calling. See the parentheses here?
Mm-hmm.
This parentheses is what you're invoking. And this dictionary is the argument. Sorry, this object is the argument. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is this?
Oh, it's got the arrow going.
Yes.
Anonymous function.
Yes. Excellent. And what does it take as an argument?
It doesn't have it yet?
It doesn't take any arguments.
Okay.
So this is a function. This is a function that does not take any arguments. So when you invoke it, you will invoke it like the way that you invoke use styles up here. You just pass nothing. You just open close parentheses, and then you call the function. So here we've defined a function that takes no arguments. So this use memo thing, whatever it is, it takes this thing as a function, and by the way, returns. I think it's returning a theme object. Okay, so this use memo is taking a function, and this function that it takes takes no arguments. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah.
and then it returns this theme thing, whatever this theme thing is. We don't know. And then we're on to our return statement.
We got it.
Yeah. And then here we are returning some more component level things. So we're just about at time. I want to show you the last thing. So this app is we export default here, yeah? So
Yes.
let's find out where it gets used. I happen to know where it gets used. Let me see if we can get the tool to tell us. Oh, it's not. Go to references. Oh, lame. It failed. It gets used in index.js. So here on index, we import app from app. So check it out. We made our own thing that we can import from.
Wow.
Yeah, so this
That's
is
so
how...
much fun.
Yeah, so like if you wanted to, you could make things, put them on the internet, and then other people can, well, not quite so simple, but put them on the internet, and then import them, and then use them. Right?
A database
A
or something. I'm stuck on this database thing, guys.
We'll get to databases, don't worry.
Library.
Oh, yes, library.
All right, so that's the story.
Wow, we did it. That was fun.
Yeah, it was actually, I wasn't sure how fun it was going to be, but it was really nice having Kent and Charlie to join us and make it fun. Oh, and Dev said hey. And he probably said hey a long time ago. Hey, Dev.
Oh,
I was bad at monitoring
Devin, not
chat.
looking. Ah.
Yeah. Well,
I was going to say hi to him again.
Okay, we'll just give him a future A.
Refer back to, we'll give him the timestamp of when we said hi back.
so
Yes,
like
and the
This session
function.
was very different from the first session I watched.
did you like it, Charlie?
I think this session there was a lot more learning that seems like it was happening. I think last session I watched, I think Shad, you were just grabbing Richard and Dachi by their shirt and just dragging them through, carrying them through exercises. Whereas this time I think like there was a lot of like nodding and learning going on.
Yeah. So
True. I think Charlie watched one of the earlier sessions when we were just starting.
I'm still gonna
out.
just for the record, I'm still going to grab you by the shirt and drag you through some more. I just want you to be able to follow more than there's two. I have two goals, right? One goal is that after we finish the stream, like after I dragged you through, I want you to have gained sufficient additional stuff that you could add something to it in the homework, so that the next time we come back on stream, you achieved a goal that I was able to assign you, right? Prior to this, you didn't have the tools to do it, right? Now you have the tools to at least understand what you're looking at. You probably still need a lot more experience to like figure out what they will do when we copy paste, because all we did today was look at structure. But and then the second thing I want to be able to do is keep you guys interested. Like, and how do we do that? We do have to move somewhat fast. Like, we need to be able to achieve goals during the stream. Like, we need to be able to show like, here we managed to build this together, or we managed to learn this together. Those achieving of goals is what makes it fun, you know? So those are my two top goals.
Yeah, now I can actually follow what I'm reading.
Yeah.
Before it was just like letters and symbols.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, Charlie, the last time you joined, it was a totally different. I think I've learned a lot more about how to try and run this stream. But I mean, I'm not popular yet. There's still lots to grow. There's still many things to change. We'll figure things out as we go.
Yeah, I think you giving them a little bit of like a brush up on the basics and the building blocks of programming sort of helps them be able to piece it together, and then that kind of leads to the connecting of dots moments.
Kent, you wanted to say something?
Yeah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I'm getting dragged by my nostrils. That makes you.
Oh yeah, we're getting dragged by our shirts. And he's getting dragged by I hear that.
I have so many questions for Shad, but at a different time.
I'll
Join us next Monday.
You spent the whole time with us. Let me answer at least one. If you have one, I'll do it now.
Well, I guess I guess I can ask questions that pertains to the entire crowd. Why was the JavaScript the language of choice for beginners in your mind?
Oh. So I think the reason JavaScript's not the best language for beginners. It's strictly speaking, the reason for choosing JavaScript is that there's lots of resources on the internet. Like, a reason for picking a technology often has to do more with the community than any one particular thing. If I had to pick a language just for teaching, it would probably be Python. But because
I would say the same thing.
and I want to actually do I was thinking of doing this whole thing all over again in Python with Satch and Rickles when we go back to poker. So like we'll go to LiveJournal for a month and we'll do the whole grab them by the shirt or nostrils or whatever and run and achieve things. And then when we come back to poker, we wrote the back end of poker in Python. So it would be useful to relearn everything we did, because the problem with teaching beginners is that there's two independent things we're trying to teach. One is syntax, and JavaScript syntax is not the best. And then there is problem solving. That thankfully is universal. You can learn problem solving in any language. But if the syntax is constantly getting in your way, then problem solving is it becomes really hard to grasp, right? But I had this idea, and here's what I'm going to suggest. We'll play with LiveJournal, achieve a few things, and then when we come back to Python, when we come back to the poker and we start Python, we'll redo the crash course. I'll teach you all the primitives and all the conditionals and functions, dictionary. In Python, it's called dictionaries, and lists and lambdas. I'm using the words now from Python, which I can't help but use when I'm talking about JavaScript too. And you'll see that there's so much in common. And so the second time around, it'll be a lot easier. But then we'll be able to focus even more on the problem solving, which is going to be just as fun, especially now that you've gotten a notion of of doing both. You know.
What did you learn from teaching Richard and Sach?
What did I learn? What did I learn?
Nothing at all.
No, I learned a lot. I'm gonna go with my number one. They are Sach and Rickles are actually really good problem solvers. I think like I was impressed by what they came up with, and I think it's just I think that the being able to identify the tools that we need to problem solve, and the tools and understanding how to translate that eventually into syntax is the actual challenge for beginners. It's really like if you have students though that already understand the notion of problem solving, teaching is a lot easier.
True.
What about what you learned for yourself?
Sorry, I missed the question. What was it?
What about you learned? What did you learn about yourself or for yourself?
I learned that I get nervous on streams. I learned that I need to find ways to like plan out how I'm going to do things, but I also learned that it's useful to like rely on Sach and Rickles to make the stream interesting, and I don't have to do all that work. So that's what I learned about myself. It's not I'm literally not joking. Like at the beginning, I was Yeah, sorry, Sach, go on.
Oh, I was just saying that me and Rich have the jokes to entertain the audience.
I saw a GIF recently on not a GIF, but like a thumbnail preview where you can sort of see some animation on the thumbnail, and Sach was doing like a little dance in the thumbnail. And I was like, yes, of course, like she will be nicely highlighted in the thumbnail. That's what's actually going to attract some people, that movement. My head's probably like static in the center.
Sure, I'm always moving around place. Yeah, you can depend on us. Maybe it's a trio.
Yeah, I think an interesting thing, like I know some people I had this stream once before, and I always ask my friends what they think, and the vast majority of my friends are established engineers, so them watching like this level of programming, I keep thinking would be kind of boring for them, to be honest, but that's not frequently the complaint. So that's also a thing I learned. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it's boring. I don't think whether you know how to code or not. I think that's not what people who know how to code would get out of this stream. I think it would be sort of observing how people learn and seeing people make sense of what they see on the screen or how they interpreted it versus how you're so used to looking at it in one way. You get a fresh take on it by someone new, so that's interesting. And when they have a connect the dots moment, as I keep saying, it kind of takes you back to when you had those moments, and that's the kind of euphoria that kind of keeps a developer going, or at least kept me going in the beginning stages of my career and learning how to code, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but it becomes like few and further in between, right? The next time you have that moment is actually quite a long ways out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always refreshing to see somebody else go through that, because it's been a while since I've had that. Not because I know so much, but rather in my job I've gotten to a point where I solve similar problems,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing is so brand new that I get that again, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's an excellent point. I think we have to. That's how we need to market my stream then. Like reaction, like watch beginners react to code.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's like Fang engineer teaches beginners. Right? And then there'll be different angles of it. Beginners that want to learn, and also more experienced people looking at beginners learn.
So I have to admit, it was these questions. I'm so glad I stuck around. We kept the stream going for these questions. They turned out a lot of fun, useful stuff.
Very
Thanks, Charlie.
insightful.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem.
All right,
Yeah, thanks guys for joining.
and thanks
Yeah,
Kent
thanks,
too.
Kent.
Kent also asked good questions. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you out, Kent.
Yo, whatever, man. No problems.
All right, that was a good session. So next Monday, yeah.
Yeah, next Monday.
For the homework, do you want to try to read some of the code yourself? Why don't each of you pick a file, and for the next stream, like maybe you could run the explanation, and I'll just correct any mistakes you have. How's that?
Okay.
That'd be good.
Okay. So pick
that.
different ones, yeah? And don't pick tiny ones. If there's any tiny ones, skip the tiny ones. Don't use index.js. What was that, Charlie?
Pick the dot get ignore. Pick the readme.md.
Okay, constraints on what you're allowed to pick. Must start with a capital letter and end in JS.
Okay, understood.
Okay.
Skip the test files too, because we never wrote anything. We never wrote anything into them.
We'll probably pick the most intriguing ones.
Yeah,
I think you should maybe assign it to them. Assign each of the files to them that you think would be interesting,
okay.
right? Because what if they end up picking a file that's like actually, tough to decipher given the tools that they have currently?
Mm-hmm. But that might actually be interesting too,
Yeah, it's gonna struggle a bit.
I do that all the time. Like throw them in the deep end. It's the best way to learn.
True.
So I really like this reviews file. In case you're interested in looking at one, this one here is interesting. It contains some stuff I haven't touched on since I taught it to you. So you may have to look stuff up to figure it out. What else? Oh, look at this one.
This was not being chosen for sure.
Yeah, don't worry about review edit. Actually, no. They wrote this one, actually. Charlie, they wrote this one.
Yeah,
That's the reason why it's so long.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is Satch. This is all Satch.
I know I did all the different. What did I do?
That's the actual reason
these
for
are all
not
the
assigning it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can see some. Okay, I see.
Yeah, there's lots. There is some serious copy pasting going on here.
Yes.
I did a lot of copy pasting.
You should.
But
you should
in my
tell Satch
defense,
to
I have-
refactor that.
Refine it?
Refactor?
Oh,
Refactor it using the tools that you learned.
Yeah.
oh Jesus.
Soon though, I think they'll. I showed them how to refactor before, but it's been so long. We'll do it again. I'll show you guys how to do that. Okay, so let's do yeah. So spend your time. I think reviews is interesting. What else is
Reviews.
interesting? Main is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. Let's do reviews in Maine. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Good stream. Thanks, Charlie and Kent, for joining. That was fun. It was excellent.
Yeah.
All right, great job.
When shall we
That's
book
it.
some time for interviews, Shad? I want to interview you.
You want to interview me? Okay.
Yes.
So hold on. Let me look at my calendar real fast. So I'm in Boston this week, and
Whoa!
I'll be back on Saturday. So maybe not this week then, but how about any day next week except Monday, which is when we have the next stream scheduled.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tuesday
rest of the
maybe.
folks too.
Okay.
Tuesday. What time?
So are you you're on Eastern time? I imagine. Yeah. So 5:45. So we usually do 6 to 7 my time, which is I think 9 to 10 Eastern time.
Sounds good.
Wait, no. Wait, is it 9? Yeah, 9 to 10. Okay, so let's do Tuesday, November 30th. Are we doing it on the stream? Is that the plan or something else?
I think
Yeah,
so. I
do
mean, I got a lot of questions. That's,
Content. That's content.
Okay.
it is content, but yeah, I'll ask lots of questions specific to my career stuff, something specific to, what a Google engineer thinks about, things like that. And if this is a channel for people of every level to sort of pop in and learn, I think I would have questions that pertains to anyone.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I'll schedule it and then put the schedule on YouTube, and then we'll meet up here in this Discord.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, thanks internets for watching.
Peace.
Bye.
Yeah.